Hi, and welcome to Studio SN. My name is Sara Naumann, and today we're doing Christmas card making with Fresco Finish paints. Acrylic paint gives a lovely look to vintage themed Christmas cards. As you can see here, I've actually got paint in a couple of different areas on my card. Probably the one you notice first is this background where I've got green paint brayered onto my background. But I also have paint here on the foreground, this lovely vanilla color, as well as some more of that same green paint, just highlighting some areas of my stamped design. So 3 different applications, all really easy to do. So let's take a look and let's get started with the background here, this brayering technique. I'm going to bring in a piece of standard white cardstock. This is an uncoated or a matte cardstock. And I'm going to brayer my paint directly on here. So of course I need to have a brayer, and I'm using this little guy here. I also need, of course, my paint. Now the paint that I'm using for the background is the Tinned Peas color. And the paint that I'm using is from PaperArtsy. It's their Fresco Finish chalk acrylics. These are a little bit different than other types of acrylic paints out there because they have a really high coverage, high opacity. They're just a beautiful, beautiful rich color. And because of their wonderful coverage, you don't need a whole lot. So 1 bottle will go a long way. So this is the semi-opaque. You can see with this little swatch on here what this paint is going to look like when you paint it on or when you brayer it on. So what I'll do is just go ahead and squeeze out a little bit of this paint onto my craft sheet. You don't need a whole lot to get started with because of course you can always add more. I'm just going to apply the paint onto my brayer. I want to make sure that it's all the way around here so that I can really brayer this on nicely. Like so. Pick up a little bit more, go the opposite direction. I'm not trying to cover the entire piece. I'm just trying to get some color on here, some pattern. I can go both directions if I want to, or a single direction. Just depends on what you're looking for. Okay, and so there we go. We've got a beautiful background all set to go. And then I just use a baby wipe to clean off my brayer as well as my craft sheet. So I'm just going to clean this up quickly. And then I'm going to go ahead and set this aside to dry. Now, even as I move it, you can probably see it's pretty dry in this area over here. In the thicker areas, it's going to take a minute or two again, but that won't take very long at all. So then the next area I want to paint is my foreground. So I'll set this one aside and bring in another piece of white cardstock, and I'll bring in another one of the Fresco Finish paints, and this is vanilla. This is opaque. You can see on this little swatch here that it's going to give you some nice coverage. Now vanilla is one of those colors that I just find I use all the time. It's a beautiful, beautiful yellow color. And I'm going to paint onto my cardstock. Now I could either put my paint on my craft sheet, or sometimes I just don't feel like cleaning up, so I just put it right onto my cardstock. And I'm using a brush this time rather than a brayer. This is a flat brush, which is the style of the brush, so you can see it's got this flat bristle here. And this is going to give me not only the nice coverage on here, but also the flat bristles will create a bit of a pattern around the edge because I'm not going all the way to the edge of the cardstock. I'm just going top and bottom, leaving a bit of a white border around there. So you can see already with this lovely opaque coverage on here that I've really got a nice single layer ready to go. Okay, so then again, I need to set this aside and let this dry so that I can do my stamping. So I'll bring in a piece that is magically already dry, and I can start stamping on here. So the stamps that I'm using also from PaperArtsy, and this is the HPXM03 style here. You can see on here the beautiful vintage bells. There's also swirl, the lamppost, and then lots of Christmas sentiments on here as well, all with a really lovely vintage effect. And the bells are the design that I want. So I've got my stamp already up on my block. So you can see they're really nice red rubber stamps, cling stamps that go right onto an acrylic block. And I'm going to heat set these with embossing powder. So I also need to have something to do my embossing on. So I have a folded piece of scrap paper, as well as my watermark stamp pad. I'm using the Versamark, so whatever you happen to have on hand. Then I also need my embossing powder, and this is from WOW Embossing Powders. This is the Primary Bark Regular. It is a deep, dark, beautiful brown. I absolutely love it, and I think when you see it in combination with this vanilla, you'll see why I get so excited about it. It's just a really lovely color and a nice alternative to black. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and ink up my stamp with the Versamark, and then go ahead and turn it over and stamp it right onto that painted background. Okay. And then I realize you can't see anything. So then quickly I need to put this inside my folded piece of paper, come in with my bark, and sprinkle this right on top. Tap off the excess, and look at that. The design is gorgeous, and I think that brown with the yellow is just so warm and beautiful. Now, if you end up with any little stray bits of powder, just come in with a dry brush and just sort of whisk those off. And then you go ahead and heat set this. Now, when you heat set it, you will have a piece that looks like, hold on, that looks like this. So you can see that beautiful vintage effect, and still the shine on here is just lovely. So then I'm going to go ahead, I could actually leave it this way if I wanted to, but I wanted to add a little bit of painted color in the leaves, the holly leaves of the stamp design. So again, bringing back in my tinned peas, and I just need a little bit on my craft sheet. I'm going to dilute the paint though, so I have a bit of water here. I'm going to spray right next to the paint, not right into it, but right next to it, so that I can really control how watery that paint gets. Because remember, this is a really nice, beautiful, opaque coverage, so I want to apply the water judiciously. I need a fine tip paintbrush, and actually as I was looking through my stash, I found that the finest tip that I had was actually a water brush. So normally with a water brush, you would fill the barrel with water and then squeeze as you're doing your applying your brush bristles. So in this case, I did not put water in here. I just am using the tip of this because it is such a nice, fine, detailed tip. So I'm going to get a little water on the brush and then pick up just a little bit of the paint until I get it the consistency that I want, and then come in and add a little bit of this just in the leaves of this design. Now the embossing will kind of guide your brush through here. It also means that you don't sort of have to worry about going over the lines. It kind of holds in that watery paint as well. And then just come along here and color in all of the leaves on here as much as you want. So you could of course add other colors on here too. I thought just doing a little bit of the leaves really added that vintage touch without overwhelming the design. And come along through here. If you get the paint on any other areas that you don't want, just come in with a little bit of a paper towel and kind of blot with that. Now you might be wondering how it is to stamp and emboss on top of a painted background, and because of the chalk finish of these paints, the Fresco Finish paints, it is a beautiful matte surface on which to stamp and emboss. It works beautifully. So then I would go ahead and color in all the rest of my leaves on there, and then let me bring in my original card and we can take a look at this again. So you can see I've got this all painted on here. If the paper is curling up a little bit like you saw with this, just put it under a pile of magazines or a stack of books for a little bit and it will flatten right out. I also added one of those lovely stamped quotes from the same PaperArtsy set that has also been heat embossed with the bark, and then matted this up onto some dark brown cardstock, added a bit of green ribbon, matted it up onto my beautiful brayered background, and then put it onto a craft colored card blank. And this is one of those card designs I think would be really great. Again, if you are doing any kind of mass production on your Christmas cards, you can brayer these backgrounds and stamp and emboss these in just minutes. It would be great and a very easy way to get through a large Christmas card making list. So this is how to create unique handmade Christmas cards with acrylic paints. I hope you enjoyed today's show. For more ideas and inspiration, please stop by my website at saranaumann.com. If you enjoyed today's video, I invite you to subscribe to Studio SN on YouTube, and I'll keep you updated with a new video every Wednesday. Thank you for joining me on Studio SN, and I will see you again next time.